Pastor Brad,
Pastor Fari.
my brother from another mother. I don't know if you know this, but after Eden started, we haven't been in the same office, which has been very sad.
So sad.
And I miss our conversations, Holy Discourse. I do appreciate your wisdom. So how to fight ignorance, complacency, and slumber. So one of the points that was mentioned was stir one another in the faith. Never walk alone. How have you found that out for yourself? Avoiding slumber and complacency, obviously being part of the church. How was it in the beginning of your faith stages?
Oh, well, that's
so long ago.
That's 1,000 years ago,
I know,
Pastor
right?
Fari. I mean, I grew up in church, and so my story's probably similar to yours, Jen. You're born, and probably the next Sunday you were in church, and you haven't left since. So
yes.
my story's different than a lot of people, but I'm so grateful for it. This is a sidebar, but I think often, you get this sense, I got this sense growing up, even as a teen, like, oh man, I don't have a good testimony. I don't have, I hear all these wonderful stories. I was addicted to drugs and I murdered people, but now I follow Jesus, and I'm like, well, I haven't done any of that stuff. But I've come now to appreciate that so much, how God has saved me from a string of broken relationships. God has saved me from drugs. God has saved me from all these terrible things because I never went through them. You don't have to go through them to be saved from them. And that's not has nothing to do with the question, but I feel like that's
because you were in church.
It's an important point because my journey is different than so many people's journeys where you came to faith later in life.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my story. And so but that is a precious story, and I want to pray that for my kids, for your kids, that we don't have to go through the pains of life. We don't have to go through Freedom Session later and talk about things that happened 40 years ago. You can be saved beforehand by following God's way.
Yeah.
And messages like this are so important.
Yeah,
absolutely. Where you stay on the path, that you don't fall asleep, that you do stay awake, that you're plugged into church, you're having good relationships, surrounding yourself with godly friends.
Yeah.
And that's part of what the antidote for the message was these things. So you had a different faith.
Yeah.
So maybe describe what that looked like for you.
Oh, all the killings and the drugs. No. It did not happen in my life either. But yes, I do come from a different background than yourself. I did not grow up in the church. I was not familiar with the ways of Christ until I came here, and until I came to Canada, and then where we got introduced to the gospel for the first time, and which was where I found faith and help not to remain ignorant or become complacent in my faith. So I think attending church weekly, being in a small group in life group. I remember with Jen Ennis in the beginning, coming to find, okay, what is small group about? What is this life of the church like? And life group is a great place to find that out, where you're in a small group of people that really care for you, and they want to see you to become more like Christ. And that's where we also learn, like Paul says, imitate. Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And so we are to watch one another and imitate one another. And that's where a lot of heartaches can be prevented.
Absolutely.
If you imitate other Christians.
Just follow Jesus in his way. It's so much better, guys. Seriously. Just do it. Just follow his way. Your life will be so much better. Not free from struggle, but free from pain and regrets. Man, you don't have to carry regret. You don't have to carry pain because of the sin that you've done. There's still hard things in life. God didn't spare you from trouble. Jesus said you will have trouble in this world, but have trouble because you're following Jesus.
Yeah.
That you're being maybe persecuted for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Don't be, stuck in pain because of things that you could have avoided.
Yeah. And then the second thing was this idea of studying the Word. And I like to put it this way, that we are to study the Word, not just to read the Bible. Because a lot of people read the Bible, but they're not students of the Word. Yeah. And how have you found out for yourself? What's the best way that people can take away? Maybe there's someone new here. They're like, man, I don't know how to get into this ancient book. Where do I start? Do I start in Genesis from the first book, or do I start in the middle? What's the best way?
There's so many good ways, so many great programs. If you're new in faith, come to Alpha. We have Alpha starting up again on April 18th, and we actually go through one of those subjects. How to pray, how to read the Bible, even where it came from, and so that will be a great foundation. I have done many times the Bible in a year, and it's put out by Nikki Gumbel, who did the Alpha, helped put the Alpha course. Download the app for free. There's a bit of the Old Testament, a bit of the New Testament, and some commentary because it is an ancient book. I mean, you probably don't read ancient literature. I don't, aside from the Bible, and so just the way things were written, the styles, the context is you need some help. And I found, his Nikki Gumbel's commentary very helpful. It's like, hey, this is what was going on, and this is how it applies today in our lives. And even the Old Testament is hard to understand, but the key is Jesus, and Jesus unlocks meaning in the Old Testament. And so, thank you, Nikki Gumbel. That makes way more sense when I'm reading it. So if you're just starting out, that's a great way. Go to the Alpha course. Or even in the Bible, most of them will have introductions. Go read the introductions. Don't skip through the introduction because, who were the Colossians? Well, the Colossians were a real place. Colossae was a real place, and Paul was writing to the church, and the church had these issues that Paul was addressing. That actually helps frame the Bible for me. So don't skip the introductions of the Bible.
That's a great point. Yeah, and then one place where you might find good resources, Bible Project. They have some good videos out there for your kids to watch. I was talking to my wife. I'm like, man, our kids, they only get to watch screen like 2-3 days a week.
I feel personally attacked right now.
Do you? It's okay. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. So what we're trying to do during school week, we're like, okay, no screen time. But what we try to do, even for the days they do watch screen, I was talking to my wife. I'm like, Angie, we should probably do every couple of hours where we're like, if you're going to be on screens for, 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever it is, on the days that you're allowed to be on screens, in between, have like a break where they watch a Bible project every 2 hours. They watch 15 minutes, 30 minutes on the Bible so that you're filling your mind with truth. I think that's one of the things, important things for us is to fight the devil is to actually to be filled with the truth. And so how much truth are we filling ourselves with?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to go looking for the counterfeit to recognize what the counterfeit is. People who study counterfeit, dollar bills, like counterfeit prevention task force, they'll study a real bill. And they'll know it intimately. They'll know how it feels. They'll know like all the different bumps on it, the nuances of the paper, even the way it smells. And they study the real so much that when they encounter the fake, they instantly recognize it.
Yeah.
And for us, we need to know the real. We need to know the truth of God. You need to go through the Bible Project, Bible in a year, get to know God's word. And then once you know his word, you'll be able to discern even his voice, because his voice sounds like his word. And so the more we understand what is truth, and Jesus is the truth isn't an idea, truth is a person, and we know Jesus, we'll be able to recognize what is false. And we won't be ignorant anymore. Take it away, Pastor Fari.
So good. Thank you, Pastor Brad. Appreciate our conversation. Thank you for staying with us. Love you so much. Have an amazing Sunday.